In the previous tutorial I showed you how to make a bouncing photo. Well, we want to expand on what we've already learned and not redo all the work we did. So I'm going to show you how to take that tutorial to build this display. I'm going to start a new Blender file here and delete the old cube to start with, and then import the photograph from my previous tutorial, which if I load this bounce photo blend file, go to object and click photograph, I can hit link append. And what that did is bring in not only the object, but it also brought in the animation. So if I hit play, you'll see this rectangle bounce just like in my previous tutorial. So from the front view, I'm going to hit Control Alt 0, and that moves the camera to the front view. And if I scrub forward to about there, you can see my camera's a little low. So over in the tree, I click camera, click the little box here, and I'm going to click and drag the Z number to the right until I can see the whole picture. Now I think that's a little close, so I'm going to drag the Y number to the left, and that moves the camera away. So now if I go back to the beginning, you can see the animation. So that's one photo. Now let's take that photo and make, well, before we do that, let's go load our images. So I'm going to come over to the UV image editor, and I'm going to add open multi-bounce and click add open image. There's one open image, add 20. Now one of the things I did is I already in Photoshop cropped these photos so that they were all the same aspect ratio. So I'm going to have 5 new photos, all of the same. They're not the same size, but they're the same proportion, height to width. So there's 5 new photos. Go back to my 3D view. I have the photograph here. I select it so it has the orange box around it, and I hit Shift D and then right click on the mouse, and it will just drop it right back where the original one was. And what that just did is it made a duplicate. So I have photograph and photograph 0.001. Do that a couple more times, and I have now 5 photographs. If I hit play, you'll see they all move together. Not exactly what I want. I want one to come, then another, then another, then another. To change that, I'm going to go to the dope sheet, and these little rectangle or diamond shapes are where the keyframes are. You can see there's at the bottom is the photograph, photograph 1, photograph 2, photograph 3, and photograph 4. So what I will want to do now is if I hit A, I can deselect all the keyframes, and then I'm going to select them with a box. So I hit B, and I put a box around photograph 1. I'm going to hit G for grab and move them to the right. Drop them there. A to deselect, B to select photograph 2. G for grab, drag it to the right, and click to drop it. A to deselect, B for a box, G for grab, G for grab, move it to the right, click to drop it. One more, A, B, G. Try that again, G. Okay. Also, if I pull this little green flag over to the right, that is frame 435. My animation ends at 250, so let's go ahead and change that to 450. So now my animation is 450 frames long. If I go back to my 3D view and hit the rewind and play, you can see one picture comes, and let me put it on texture. So one picture, and then the second picture. And you'll notice as it goes past the light, it gets dark. So this is the light. I'm going to go hit 7 for the top view, and I'm going to move the light forward like this a little bit. I'm also going to make that into, I'm on Blender Render. Let's change that to Cycle Render. Use nodes. Let's make it 2, and sun, just like that. So I go back to 1 or 0 for camera view. Now you can actually see it. We can scrub through. You see 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 photos. Okay. Next we want to change the photos. So if we go up to photograph 1, or the first photograph, photograph with no number at the end, and I click on material, there's 2 materials for each photo. There's border and photo. I want to change the photo for each one. So I click photo, and then I'm going to change it to dad. And what you'll see is, let me drag my timeline over to the left a little. If I come through here, when I changed one, I changed all of them. So all the photographs have a new photograph. Now if I go to photograph 1, before I click on photo, I can hit the plus and then change to the new one. So now the second photograph is the second image. Go to photograph 2, click photo, plus, pick the third image. Go to photograph 3, click photo, plus, pick the fourth image. 1, 2, 3, 4. And the last photo. Photo, plus, pick the last one. So now, when I scrub through, got 1 photo, 2 photo, 3, and 4, and 5. So that's how you make quickly. You take what we did before and you build on it to make 5 photos bouncing into frame. Now to make the animation, all you need to do is click on the camera here and pick your output size that you want. I'm going to pick TV NTSC with the 16:9 aspect ratio. I am going to pick, for the output, I'm going to pick MPEG. Oops. I don't have any audio, so I can leave that as none. And now all I need to do is, well, I can pick a path too. So let's go ahead and pick our multi-bounce path, and I'll give it a file name. I can type in multi-bounce. It will give it its own extension, and when you're ready, you hit animation, and it begins the animation. Now I didn't go through adding a plane and changing the background. That would have made it look a whole lot better. But the purpose of this video was to show you how to use your previous work to speed up your current work. I guess that's how you would say that. Anyway, that's a bad way to. Okay, to recap, what we've done so far is we went to an old project and we imported or appended a photo with the animation, and that helped to speed along the development of this new project. Now I'm going to go ahead and create a video, and before I do, what I want to do is check the render at certain points. So if I come out here to 80, what I'm checking for right here is the light on the photo. Make sure it's bright enough. I don't want it to come out dull. So I hit F12 and it starts to render. You see it's going to take a long time, and if I have to do this several times, you're going to end up wasting a lot of time. So let me show you how to speed this up a little bit. Let's stop this render. I'm going to change my output over here. That's a very large photo that it's creating. So let's change that to 50%. That's the first thing I'm going to do, and I'll hit F12 and it'll make a much smaller photo. Much smaller image. You can see the light looks pretty good. I'm going to leave it there. And the next thing I'm going to do is scrub forward, and I'm scrubbing to a point where a shadow will be cast because I want to check what the shadow looks like. That's a good spot right there. Now here's another little trick to speed up what you're rendering. If I hit Control B, I'll make a render border, and the render border will just calculate the image in this small area. So if I hit F12, you'll see that it takes much less time. Now you'll notice in this shadow it's very noisy, and there's many things you can do to improve on that. The easiest thing to do is to change the number of render samples. So I'm going to change that to 50. Now keep in mind, the higher this render number, the longer it will take to create each frame. You have 450 frames, so if each one takes 10 seconds longer, it's going to add a lot to making your video. So try to keep that as low as possible. Some of the other things you can do to improve the quality is to turn no caustics on, and we're going to increase this filter from 0 to 5. Now if I hit F12, you can check out your shadow, and you can see that the shadow is a little bit better. It's not great, but it's better. Now this is going to be moving too. It's not like a render of a still image where you just sit and look at the image. So this noise will be moving and won't look so bad in a video. The next thing I'm going to do, whenever anything's moving, if it's completely crisp like this, it doesn't really look good. So I'm going to turn motion blur on, and if I turn it on, you'll see that the shutter speed is 0.5. I'll hit F12, and you'll see that it's very blurry now. Remember, this photo's falling forward, and it's creating a whole lot of blur here. That's a little too much. I'm going to change my number here to 0.1 and re-render it. Let's hit escape and render and see what our blur looks like. So we've changed the samples to improve the shadow, and we've put motion blur to add just a little blur onto the edges of the moving parts, and that looks pretty good. So let's now define our output. One of the things we need to do is pick a path. Right now my output path is Multibounce, which is where I'm keeping the Blender file, which is okay, but a lot of times when you load it, it'll just go to your temp file. You want to change it to a folder where you won't lose it with a bunch of other junk. So in my case, I have this Multibounce over here. Here's your recent folders that you've used. You can click on there or search your paths. Here are your drives, here are some of your bookmarks, and you can create other bookmarks here. And then you can give it a name. I'm going to give it the name 5 photos. You can see I did this earlier, which is right here. If I click on this, I can hit X to delete that file. So when I put 5 photos up here, what it's going to do is append the frame numbers that I'm rendering to the base file name, and then add an extension. So call it 5 photos, hit accept, and you'll see the double slash here, meaning it's going to go into the same folder as your Blender file, and 5 photos is the name. Now I'm going to change it to MPEG. If you're going to create a really long animation, you might want to make it into a series of JPEGs or PNG files, and so that you can restart it at any time. This is a fairly short video, so I'm just going to go ahead and make an MPEG directly from my animation. So I hit MPEG, and now I'm ready to hit the animation button. Oh, wait, I want to pick the dimensions first. For this video, I'm going to pick this TV NTSC 16:9. That's a widescreen, and if I go back to 3D, you'll see it changes the aspect ratio depending on which one I pick. So we'll go back to here, and the other thing I didn't do is I didn't change my render border, still this small little area. So I'm going to hit Control Alt B to clear my render area. Now I'm ready. Probably should save first. Let's go ahead and save my Blender file and then hit animation. So it's going to go through 450 frames. It's going to make 720 by 480. It's going to put it in my Blender folder, which you can see up here, and it's going to call it 5 photos 0001-0450. It's going to give it a .dvd extension, which I can change to MPEG and then play in any multimedia player. So that's pretty much it for the tutorial, and I'll have to append on to the end of this the final product.